You check your balance at night. Rent, groceries, a little saved, not much. You want it to grow, but not in a casino. Banks feel slow and stingy. Crypto often feels loud and risky. So where do regular people go? This is where Ondo steps in. Not as a flashy promise, but as a simple idea. Take the kinds of things big money trusts, like short-term treasuries, and bring them on-chain in a way normal people can actually use. Then give the community a voice in how it runs. That voice is the Ondo token. Here's the plain version. Ondo is a project trying to open the door to institutional-grade finance. Not the hype stuff, the steady, boring, reliable stuff. The Ondo DAO is the community that helps guide it. And Ondo is the way you vote on parts of that system, like Flux Finance, a lending protocol the DAO oversees. Why should you care? Because access and control have always been the problem. Regular people rarely get either. Ondo is saying you can have both, access to better tools and a say in how they're used. Think about what that could mean in your life. Not chasing crazy APYs, just aiming for clear, steady options you can understand. Not trusting a black box, seeing the rules in code and voting when those rules should change. Not waiting on a bank manager's approval, using a system that runs 24/7 and treats you like an adult. This isn't perfect. Nothing is. Some parts are still centralized. Some decisions are still guided by foundations and partners. But you deserve to know when something is at least trying to make the good stuff. Clarity, fairness, shared control, available to more than a handful of insiders. So here's what you'll get in this video. What Ondo actually is in plain words. What Ondo lets you vote on and how that shows up in real life. Where the real world use is today. The trade-offs you should know before you decide to get involved. No hype. Just a clearer path between your money and your choices. If you've ever wanted finance to feel less like a gated club and more like a public utility with a ballot box, stay with me. In the next section, we'll break down what Ondo is and how Ondo gives you a real seat at the table, in simple, concrete terms. Imagine standing outside a tall glass building in New York. Inside, people in suits trade US, Treasuries, money market funds, and high-yield products. Billions move every day. But for most of us, that door has always been locked. Ondo is trying to pick that lock, but legally, transparently, and on-chain. It started in 2022 with a mission that sounds bold but simple. Bring the kind of finance only institutions use safe, steady, predictable yield into crypto so that anyone, anywhere could access it. No gatekeepers, no million-dollar minimums. The tool that makes this possible is the Ondo token. And no, it's not just another meme coin or a hype vehicle, it's a governance token. That means if you hold Ondo, you can actually vote on key decisions in the Ondo DAO. Think of it like being a shareholder, but one that votes not just on profits, but on the rules of the system itself. Here's where it gets real. One of the main things Ondo holders influence is Flux Finance. That's Ondo's lending protocol, where tokenized assets, like treasuries wrapped into blockchain form, can actually be used as collateral. It's a way of putting traditional safe assets to work in a DeFi setting. So when you hold Ondo, you're not just speculating. You're helping guide how these experiments with real-world assets evolve. Should new assets be added? Should incentives shift? Should Flux take more or less risk? Those decisions move through the DAO, and Ondo holders have a voice. Why does this matter? Because governance has always been tilted toward the powerful. Ondo flips the script by at least offering a mechanism where your voice, tied to your tokens, counts. It doesn't erase all centralization. Foundations and partners still carry weight. But it does carve out a space where the rules aren't handed down from above. They're discussed. They're voted on. They're shaped in public. And that's the heart of Ondo. Not wild speculation, but structure. A framework where real-world assets can live on-chain and where people, through Ondo, get to weigh in on how that framework is built. In the next section, we'll move from theory to reality. Because words like democratize finance can sound abstract. So let's ask, where is Ondo actually touching people's lives right now? What's happening outside of white papers and DAO forms? That's where we'll go next. So what does Ondo actually do out in the real world? The easiest way to think of it is this. Ondo takes things that once lived only in Wall Street vaults or government ledgers and gives them a digital passport. Suddenly, they can move on-chain 24/7 at internet speed. Take US Treasuries. Normally, if you wanted exposure, you'd need a broker, a bank, or some serious capital. With Ondo's products, those treasuries can be tokenized and plugged into DeFi. That means people in completely different parts of the world, someone in Lagos, someone in Manila, someone in Buenos Aires, can gain access to the same asset class institutions rely on for safety. Then there's Flux Finance, the lending arm of the ecosystem. Imagine having a safe, yield-bearing token backed by Treasuries. Flux lets you use that as collateral to borrow or to lend. It's like taking the most boring, reliable part of finance and making it flexible, programmable, and global. Beyond lending, Ondo has been busy forging partnerships with serious players. Ripple, JP Morgan, and other institutions aren't just dabbling, they're testing tokenized deposits and exploring how Ondo's framework can fit into traditional rails. That's a huge signal. It says this isn't just DeFi kids experimenting in Discord, it's major banks asking, what if this really works? But real-world applications aren't just about institutions. The Ondo Foundation invests in education and community events, helping everyday people understand what tokenization means and how they can use it. They're also working on intellectual property management, treasury services for startups, and building tech tools that make it easier for businesses to deploy on-chain products. And then there's USDY, Ondo's tokenized dollar yield product. It takes short-term treasuries and bank deposits, wraps them in compliance, and delivers them as an accessible, stable, yield-bearing asset. For anyone tired of stablecoins that don't pay interest, USDY is a game changer. All of these pieces, treasuries, Flux, USDY partnerships, add up to something bigger. They make blockchain less about speculation and more about utility, less about chasing the next pump, and more about building financial products that could last. So Ondo isn't just an idea floating in the clouds. It's a growing ecosystem where real-world assets and DeFi logic collide, and the momentum is building. But what keeps it running? What's the engine underneath all of this? That's where we'll go next. The technology behind Ondo. If Ondo is the bridge between traditional finance and decentralized finance, then its technology is the steel and concrete holding that bridge together. Without it, the whole thing collapses. At its core, Ondo is built on Ethereum and other leading blockchains, because that's where most of the world's liquidity already lives. But unlike many DeFi projects that just launch a token and call it a day, Ondo is very intentional about how its tech works. Every piece has to balance two worlds, the speed and openness of blockchain and the safety and compliance of traditional finance. Let's start with smart contracts. These are the automated agreements running behind the scenes, making sure that when you buy a token like USDY, it's issued correctly, redeemed securely, and tracked on-chain with complete transparency. No middlemen, no waiting 3 business days for settlement. It's instant, verifiable, and global. Then there's Flux Finance, Ondo's lending protocol. This is where the smart contracts do something really powerful. They let you use tokenized treasuries as collateral. That might sound small, but in practice, it's revolutionary. It means traditional safe assets can suddenly fuel DeFi activity. Borrowing, lending, leveraging, it all becomes programmable with rules enforced by code, not banks. Scalability was another challenge. Ethereum can be slow and expensive, especially when the network is crowded. Ondo answered by creating Ondo Chain, a custom-built blockchain using the Cosmos SDK. Think of it as a dedicated highway just for real-world assets. Fast, efficient, and purpose-built to carry these tokenized securities safely across different networks. And it doesn't stop there. Ondo integrates with Ripple's XRP ledger for settlement speed and institutional access, and it works with JP Morgan's tokenized deposits pilot. These aren't random choices, they're deliberate moves to connect crypto infrastructure with the biggest financial pipes on Earth. All of this tech comes wrapped in something most DeFi projects ignore: compliance structures. Assets like USDY aren't floating around in a regulatory gray zone. They're held in bankruptcy remote entities, managed by regulated custodians, and wrapped in legal protections. It's blockchain tech, but with safety rails built in. So the technology behind Ondo isn't flashy or gimmicky. It's built to last. It's less about chasing hype and more about laying a foundation where billions, maybe trillions, of dollars in real-world assets can finally move on-chain. When you look at most of crypto, it often feels like a carnival. New tokens appear overnight. Promises of impossible returns light up social media, and for every story of success, there are 10 of people left holding the bag. In that chaos, Ondo feels different. It doesn't come across like another speculative game. It feels like someone actually paused, looked at the bigger picture, and asked, what would it take for everyday people to trust this system? That's the real difference. Where others chase quick growth, Ondo is chasing permanence. Where others lean on mystery and hype, Ondo leans on clarity and compliance. And where others design for insiders, Ondo designs for a world where your savings, your parents' retirement, or a small business's treasury could live on-chain without fear. Think about that for a moment. Most projects in this space are still building for the trader, the degen, the early adopter. Ondo is building for the teacher saving for retirement, the immigrant sending money across borders, the startup founder managing payroll. It's building for the people who don't care about APYs or DAOs, but who care deeply about security, stability, and the chance to belong to the same financial world the wealthy have always had access to. And that's why it matters. Not because it has partnerships with big names, not because its token price has momentum, but because in a sea of projects trying to flip the system upside down, Ondo is quietly trying to make that system fairer. It's not perfect, it's not fully decentralized yet, but its heartbeat is different. It's about bringing the best of traditional finance into the openness of blockchain, and making sure people who never had a seat at the table finally get one. So where does that leave us with Ondo? It leaves us standing at the edge of something that feels both familiar and new. Familiar because the assets Ondo deals with, treasuries, deposits, financial products, are things the world has trusted for generations. New because for the first time, those same instruments are being placed on an open, programmable network where access isn't determined by how much money you already have, or whether a banker thinks you're worth their time. Ondo is not the flashiest project in crypto. It's not chasing headlines with absurd promises or outrageous tokenomics. Instead, it's building something quieter, sturdier, more lasting. A bridge. A bridge between worlds that have always been kept apart. The polished halls of Wall Street and the borderless, messy energy of DeFi. And bridges, when they're built well, change everything. They make movement possible where it once wasn't. They bring people together who never had a path to meet. The Ondo token itself is still in its early story. Right now, it's more about governance than direct utility. But governance is power. The power to shape where this bridge leads. And if Ondo succeeds, if it keeps growing and proving that tokenized real-world assets can live on-chain without losing trust, then holding Ondo is holding a voice in one of the most important conversations in modern finance. How do we make money fairer, safer, and truly global? In the end, Ondo isn't just about finance, it's about access. It's about asking who gets to participate in the systems that run our world. And for once, the answer doesn't feel limited to a select few. It feels like the door is opening wider. And that's the story worth remembering. Not just another token, not just another DAO, but a chance. Maybe the first real chance to take the strength of traditional finance and rewrite it into a form that finally belongs to everyone.